반갑습니다.
Good morning, everyone. Today, we are seeking ways to overcome conflicts and live together as people of different opinions. I would like to look at how we can increase our understanding of each other so we can communicate with one another with more empathy. Recently, with developments of new media, we see an increase of non-face-to-face communication channels. Nowadays, in terms of coming into contact with other people's opinions, the main channel seems to be less face-to-face, but more through the screens of our computers or our mobile phones. Human beings are innately self-centered and often make errors in judgment. And with the rise of new media, increasingly, we tend to make even more wrong perceptions about other people's opinions. Please take a look at this table. Even when we are perceiving other people's opinions in face-to-face conversations, we tend to interpret the information in our favor. But in conversations through media, this tendency becomes heightened as the message is often oversimplified. Another limitation of media-based opinion is that it is far from being a one-person, one-voice situation. Often we hear a particular voice louder and more often, while some voices are never heard at all. In face-to-face situations, when opinions are being expressed through the use of non-verbal clues such as facial expressions, the overall mood of conversation can be more at ease, and we can listen and at the same time give some feedback like nodding to say, "I'm listening." But in the case of non-face-to-face communication on media, since we can only see the opinion itself, the expressions may become more aggressive, and in some cases, feedback can be given in a very harsh manner without any consideration. Our research team conducted some experiments on the opinion perception conditions for non-face-to-face and face-to-face communication. The first experiment was conducted to confirm our hypothesis that when we see only the opinion and not the person behind it, we make assumptions in which our prejudices are more involved than we might imagine. Our research team created a non-face-to-face environment where participants were exposed to other people's opinions, and then they were asked to guess who would have made such a statement. Let's take a look at the video of experiment 1. People in their 20s to their 60s, 12 people of different age, sex, occupation, political propensity were asked, guess who expressed this opinion. The first opinion, portrait rights for children. Even if they are young, portrait rights should be protected for children. In previous generations, people might have said, well, I'm the adult, but things have changed. Opinion 2, 52-hour work week adoption. We used to work on Saturdays until 5:30 p.m., and if there was a lot of work, we would work on Sundays too. That kind of commitment was what made Korea's economy develop. Survey participants each thought hard, and then they guessed who that opinion would be from. You said that all three opinions were probably by subject number 5. Why? Well, for the first opinion, I thought maybe it would be a female participant, but looking at subject number 5, he looks a little opinionated. So who was the real owner of this opinion? I think you'll find the result quite surprising. It was actually subject number 8. But we can see that subject number 8 was not selected by anyone. Matching accuracy was 0%. I think someone mentioned this earlier, that it seems like the opinion of someone older, since the older people work longer hours, they probably feel this way, but actually there was no need to view people with prejudice. But that's how people viewed me. As you can see, most of us are not free from our own prejudices, and it is very hard to identify correctly whose opinion we are looking at. Nevertheless, there are countless nameless opinions on the internet. And there are many radicalized deductions or inferences online that are based on these anonymous opinions. Our second experiment was conducted for 12 people, 12 teams of 2 participants each, all of different ages and sexes, and the pairs were asked to debate on a specific issue with opposing views. Now, half of them, that is 6 teams, were asked to have some opening free discussions for about 5 minutes before the debate, while the other 6 pairs went straight into the debate with opposing views without any prior conversations. I will show you the clips. The teams with no prior conversations. And the issue is related to how do you feel about lowering the legal voting age to 18? Well, if we were to lower the voting age to 18 years, that would mean high school seniors would be eligible to vote. And in my opinion, they should be focusing more on studying and college entrance exams. So I don't think that this is a very good idea because they will probably be very busy and centered and concentrating on college entrance. Well, I agree that in our parents' generation, you would think that at the age of 18 that you should be studying and shouldn't be so involved in politics. My parents' generation are of that opinion, and many people who are older will think that way. But I think that it would be a good idea to give them voting rights. We see that these 2 people have different opinions, and because they were thrown into the debate without any personal dialogue to get to know each other, we see that they don't make eye contact when speaking, and when they do sometimes, but they are more focused on composing their own thoughts and logic, so it's not a conversation or discussion based on empathy. They're both trying to structure their own logic of statements. So because we asked these participants to start debating on the issue right away without any personal conversation first, they both seem very uneasy and tense. Now let's look at the other case where they were given some time in advance for some casual conversation before going into the debate. Some open discussion topics. For example, food. Did you have breakfast today? Yes, I usually eat breakfast. And from my childhood, I never skipped breakfast, so I've become quite used to eating breakfast. It's really important to have good, healthy habits. And now they go into the debate on this particular issue. What is your view about extending the retirement age by 5 years? After retirement, we're still quite healthy and young physically. There are many people who just wander around without anything to do. So I think it would be good to start retirement later, incrementally extend the age. Well, in my opinion, the problem of unemployment, especially for younger people, well, you know, there are many of them without jobs. So if retirement age goes up, then those people will keep working at their jobs. But if we could reduce their position just a little bit to give more opportunities to the youth, wouldn't that be better? But in my opinion, I don't think making them retire early is going to necessarily create more jobs for younger people. I still think it's better to raise the retirement age to 65. So although these 2 people have different opinions, they are both at ease, having a conversation with each other. This is why face-to-face conversation, even with different opinions, we can actually be much more relaxed and much more empathetic in terms of the communication method, and we can find more common ground. I'm sure all of you felt this, that even if you're of different generations or different sex or have different views, in face-to-face situations and after having some personal conversation, it's much easier to listen to the other person's opinion, as well as expressing my own opinion. These participants were not experts. They were ordinary people that we can run into every day. But they all had different views and ideas based on different backgrounds and bases. But especially in the case of having had some personal conversation ahead of time, we see that they were able to have a more smooth dialogue, a more mutual understanding and empathic conversations.
인정해주는 영역이 넓어진다고 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다.
So with different opinions, you could still respect others. Human interaction can be natural, but it can be jeopardized in non-face-to-face communication and can lead to wrong inferences about the other party. Last year, Professor Catalina Toma of University of Wisconsin-Madison published a paper last year about how people's beliefs about deception and text-based media are based on biases. People believe themselves to be more honest and altruistic than their peers and others to be more deceptive and selfish. And the bias was strengthened in a non-face-to-face context for the lack of nonverbal cues. Although media was developed to help communication, and if that media is hindering empathy and communication, then it defeats the whole purpose. Conflict in society is driven by polarization of views. The opinions may actually be different, but it may be due to the wrong perception of how others think and feel, and this could be due to the opinion illusion. According to a socio-psychological study, even without media intervention, when like-minded people continue to talk with each other, their opinions grow in the same direction and grows much stronger. That's because they had their own reasons behind the belief to begin with, and by listening to others' rationale, their belief is strengthened all the more. And this is the persuasive arguments theory. And within the in-group, people have similar thoughts, and the person who voices his or her opinion loudest appears to be the leader of the group, and people tend to follow the thinking of that leader. And this is social comparison theory. It's very common to see people who share similarities talk with each other more often. Because as human beings, we pursue cognitive consistency, we feel more at ease by talking to people with similar opinions. And one thing to watch out for is, in a situation when you're surrounded by same opinions, you don't take the time to think about alternatives, and the same ideas as others are reinforced. Let's assume the in-group I am a member of gains stronger identity, where when there's growing conflict between countries or between political parties, even if the actual opinion gap is only 4 points, Group A is at -2 and Group B is at +2 of the scale, Group A is mistaken into thinking that their opinions are more on the extreme and they perceive that they're at -3. And the same thing goes for Group B. So, the perceived gap is now 6. And this is much greater than the actual gap. Because of this opinion illusion, people gain a wrong perception of their in-group's average thinking, assimilates himself to thinking he also belongs to the more extreme side. And these forces pull the group toward each extreme end away from each other. And even if it's an individual opinion, if it's perceived as a group opinion, then there's a higher chance of its growing more radical. And this is the social identity theory. Maybe if we don't wrongly perceive the opinion gap to be so wide and see it the way it is, then because it is not so big of a gap, we could take the courage to try to narrow the gap. And the polarization, because of opinion illusion, could be aggravated by the media. Now, the president of Duke University, Professor Vincent Price, had conducted a study back in Stanford days, and he put up a headline of liberal arts and natural sciences students clashing over curriculum. And there was another headline shown that was written in a more neutral tone. And as a result, under the condition of having seen a more controversial headline, there was a huge opinion gap that grew farther apart between the liberal arts students and the natural sciences students, and it didn't happen in the other scenario. So what is important here is, yes, people have different opinions, and we do respect that. But if it grows as social identity, or if it's emphasized too much in the media, then it could seem much bigger than it actually is. And if the opinion gap seems too big, then you don't have the courage to try to communicate, and negative feelings toward each other can only be aggravated. And to reduce this opinion illusion, we should try to get out of the comfort zone surrounded by just similar opinions and make the effort to try to listen to different opinions. But regrettably, the current media system traps us inside our similar thoughts. That is the tendency. Including social media, the digital media system just shows us and recommends what we like to see. And we don't filter it ourselves. The media filters it for us previously. So we call this filter bubble. So however unsettling it may be, we should make the effort to try to find out things that I am not comfortable with. Otherwise, I'll be listening to the same echoes over and over, and I'll be locked up in this echo chamber. And one last thing I want to say is, because the extreme opinions are very intense, they're expressed more in the media and they're heard more, and they could be exaggerated. And on the other hand, the serious observers take up the majority, and they are of the moderate opinion, but they're not heard enough. So their opinions are not taken seriously. So for those of you who want to be a rational thinker and want the society to go in the right direction, let all the thoughts shine in the night sky. We should not be immersed in the world that the media just shows us. We should get out of this opinion illusion. We should have more face-to-face talk with other people. Only then can we overcome the illusion and misperception and can empathize and communicate with others. We should continue to talk in a way that does not aggravate the confrontation. And this will be the shortcut to going to harmonization in our society. Thank you very much.